Hello, I am Jennie Young, and I am inspired by Gen Z. I feel like they take a lot of flack, and I find them to be a delightful generation for all kinds of reasons.
All right, and welcome to the Lantern Podcast, a show out of Good Cause Productions that is produced and promoted by students at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and I have a fantastic guest for you today. She's an associate dean and writing professor here at UW-Green Bay with a PhD in rhetoric and discourse studies from Case Western Reserve University. She's the founder of Burned Haystack Dating Method, an online community of over 300,000 women where she uses her expertise in applied rhetoric to help them navigate the dating sphere. When she's not doing all that, she's an accomplished humor writer, and most importantly, she's got a book on the way. Burn the Haystack will be available in early April and promises to be a brilliant, funny, and inspiring book. Please welcome Dr. Jennie Young. What about Gen Z do you find inspiring?
So I feel like they're earnest hard workers for the most part. And, you know, they've grown up in a chaotic time. Mm-hmm. I think that, like, having taught a few different generations now, they each have sort of like their own personality. I feel like there's a real lack of entitlement with Gen Z as compared to other generations. Maybe because they know the rug can be pulled out from under us, right? That things can change radically, that things can get really hard. It's a difficult economy. They weathered a pandemic. They've had to, like the rest of us, learn to sort of make changes quickly and live in uncomfortable circumstances. And I think because of that, they're fairly grounded in reality in a way that renders them more flexible and creative than maybe some of their peer generations.
So what approximate age are we talking about when we talk about Gen Z?
So, okay. My son was born in 97, and I think he's the oldest Gen Z.
So he's Gen Z. Yeah,
barely.
Approximately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if he'd been born a few months earlier, he'd be millennial. So he's like one of those transitional. And then it probably goes, maybe 12, 15 years?
I'm trying to decide if my kids fall into this group because they're 10 and 11.
Wait, they were born in 2010 and 2011.
Yeah. Trying to find out
They might
if
be borderline too.
Okay. Like the very tail
Reese
end.
is definitely Gen Z.
Okay.
Because he's the same age as my friend's daughter that we just figured out what generation she was.
Okay.
I don't know about Tobe.
Yeah. I mean, he's only 18 months later, so
it's probably the same, right? Yeah.
So you're inspired by my kids, is what I'm hearing.
I'm inspired by your children. They're super inspirational. Yeah.
So that is super interesting because I don't know that we hear that sentiment very often, right? I mean, I think that a lot of the pop culture references to young people tend to be negative,
right?
But it sounds like you're flipping that.
Yeah, I also think that they are super kind to each other. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're generally pretty respectful and responsible. I think I sent you a link on Instagram that they have admin nights where they get rid of their subscriptions that they're not using and pay their bills and organize their calendars.
Get together and
they get together and do that.
They socialize,
and, eat at home. They go watch the sunrise. That's a thing. Did you know that?
Yeah,
Senior sunrise.
There you go.
I would never. When I was 18 years old, if someone suggested I get up and watch a sunrise, that wasn't.
Well, my niece, who maybe doesn't quite fall into this because she's 95, right? So maybe doesn't quite fall into this, but she used to argue all the time when she was in college that college students didn't stay up late. That was not really a thing.
Right. Our generation used to go out at 11 o'clock. We'd leave at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. They don't do. They're in by 11.
Too late.
I think that's crazy.
That was irresponsible.
That was irresponsible and stupid. Yeah.
Well, they also. That's the other piece too is drinking way less alcohol.
Yes.
Than previous generations.
Right. Yeah. They don't drink nearly as much. And I think they're more honest. We used to sneak out of our houses.
Speak for yourself, Jennie Young.
I used to sneak out. And I used to cut school a lot. Yeah. And I feel like they don't do that as much.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of them do. But I think a lot of them don't,
Yeah. So I'm curious, as we're talking about this, one of the things you alluded to before is you've taught a couple different generations now. So let's start from the beginning. You were at one point, you started in design, right? And then transitioned to be a high school teacher. But can we go back to the very beginning when you were studying design? What were hopes, dreams, goals, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I come from a family of educators. And so I think like my primary goal was that like I wanted to do something different. And I was always very interested in like the spaces in which people sort of live and work and exist. And I remember being like in middle school and thinking, why do we all live in these boxes that look exactly the same? Like, why isn't somebody shaking this up? Which of course people were, but you know, I was like a Midwestern child, right? Everything looked the same to me. So I was really interested in design from like a human challenge perspective, I guess. And so that's what I studied in undergrad at Kent State University in Ohio. And for the first 10 years of my professional career, I worked in that capacity. I did some residential design. I worked in architecture and engineering firms for quite a few years, like specifically working on cell phone tower communication facilities, where I'd like go up on the roof and they'd let me run the calculations for coax cable, which now seems wildly irresponsible given what you know about my lack of ability in that domain. I'm not a data person, but I don't think I screwed up anything major. So I did that. And then the majority of my time in that profession, I was a public library designer.
Okay.
But I always kind of had this like teaching bug. And I also, no matter where I worked, I ended up being the resident writer, like just by default, because nobody else wanted to do the writing. And that day it was like client communications and sometimes specifications, stuff like that. And I really loved that aspect of it. I loved the writing aspect of it. There was never any question about what I would teach if I became a teacher. I knew it would be something in the like writing literature area. So when circumstances were such that I could go back to school, I went back and got a master's to teach high school English. And I did that for a year. And I loved the students. I hated the system. I found it really restrictive. And that was in 2006. It's way worse now. So much worse. And I had an opportunity to like teach as an adjunct faculty member at University of Akron in Akron, Ohio. And I loved it. And I realized like the only way I was going to be able to stay was if I, got the PhD so that I would be eligible for more permanent, secure positions. So I did my PhD while teaching full time, which was challenging, but that's how I did it.
So I have had the good fortune of seeing your TEDx talk on your time teaching. And so when you say it's restrictive, talk a little bit about that. What were some of the challenges there?
I feel like in high school specifically right now, maybe below that, but my experience was in high school, our high schools have become increasingly carceral, like prison-like environments and governed by these elaborate rule structures and security systems and sort of these efforts to control bodies. And that's what I became interested in while I was teaching high school, but then that rolled into my graduate studies and my research since then has been in feminist embodiment theories. So I was looking at sort of the parallels between high schools and prisons and control and things like that. So
you just said, you used the phrase feminist embodiment experiences. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Can you define that for people?
Yeah. So you're familiar with like the Cartesian divide, right? Which goes back to Descartes, sort of like a mind over body, right? Mind over matter sort of orientation. Embodiment theories would say that's a false dichotomy. You can't actually separate what happens to the body to what happens to the mind and vice versa. So all these things we're doing to control student bodies, whether that's, holding them in certain spaces or requiring them to wear ID lanyards or, even just sort of like the policing of bodies throughout the day, that has a psychological effect, which also, then by definition has a cognitive effect. So all these things run together. Like if we're letting our schools turn into this like battle of wills between like administration or teachers and students or parents or whatever, then we're also unintentionally sort of thwarting the highest goals of education, which is to open the mind, to make space for differences, for people moving at different speeds, having different goals and those kind of things. So I wanted to look at education from that perspective.
I don't think I told you this. I was talking to one of my kids about your TEDx talk just recently, actually. And I said, when we use expressions like this place is like a prison.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, it's not like a prison. It is a prison.
Right. That's
And he said, and it was funny because he then used the word trapped and, whatever to follow up.
Yeah.
And so,
contemporary high schools are designed very much like prisons. They use the same, there's something called CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, I think.
Okay.
And that's what's used to design prisons, but we're also using it for high schools now in America. And it's intended to protect students from like active shooters,
right,
which is obviously a very real threat. But despite how it looks from watching the news, it's not the major threat, I don't think, to what we're doing to kids.
Well, and like you said, when you think about what that environment does, I mean, what brought this up in our case was thinking about how a lot of the teachers or administrators will wear like earpieces so they can communicate with one another, which gives it, it makes that security element very, very present. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's something you're seeing all the time. And so it's like this constant reminder that there is a threat.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we got a little bit far afield, but
we did.
That was fascinating. Yeah. So I know that what we're talking about is metaphors, which I know is really, really relevant to your current work. Right. So tell me, I introduced you and I told people that you're the founder of the Burned Haystack Dating Method. Tell people where that is and where it comes from and how metaphors are involved and all of that.
Okay. So metaphors are, we can't communicate without them. We can try, but like it would shut us down pretty quick. Did you hear what I just said? It would shut us down. Yep. That's a metaphor, right? We're already metaphorical. Metaphors are also a very good vehicle for sharing ideas. So I decided I wanted to take on the problem of the dating apps. And I needed a way, and I wanted to do that using my academic interests, right? But I needed a way to like explain to a crowd outside of academia what I was trying to do. And so we all know the phrase, I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, right? That's what everybody's looking for if they're on a dating app trying to like find their soulmate. And so late one night, I Googled, how do you find a needle in a haystack? Like an actual needle in an actual haystack. And the answer is that you burn the haystack to the ground. And I realized that it's such an apt metaphor because my perspective is women dating mostly men, right? Although it kind of spans gender and gender identity and sexual orientation now. But at the beginning, I was thinking of it through that lens. And I thought most women who are in the dating apps, like they don't want to spend their lives on the dating apps. They're trying to streamline that process, right? And find a partner. So like picking through every piece of hay forever is not like the way to do that. It takes too long. So we need to figure out like, how do you obliterate the haystack? And so I started thinking about it through that lens. And instead of like going to a dating app and looking for this perfect person, I thought, no, we need to just like get rid of hay, Burned Haystack. Let's get rid of these guys. And then whoever's left, like that's who we're going to consider dating. So that metaphor makes it very economical to explain what we're doing. So that's sort of like the metaphor at the root of Burned Haystack.
And so now this method is out there in a gajillion different places, including an upcoming book that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So we don't need to go through the method, but I do think we should talk a little bit about like the growth of the group and what's happened there. Because so you started a Facebook group, and I remember approximately when this happened, or conversations you and I had. Yeah, you wrote an article for, I think, HuffPost. Was that the
first one was in the Independent?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, I mean, we're coming up on almost 3 years exactly. I think that came out February 27th, something like that, of 2023. And so I built the Facebook group like that day.
Okay.
Because I thought, well, there's an article. Maybe people will want to talk about this.
Right.
Just on my own personal, like I built a group on my own personal Facebook account. And I posted the article in like a secret women's writers group that I was in. And, you know, a few people joined. And we started talking to each other, and people started sharing it. And over the first, like between February and August, I think that group grew to about 1,100 people. During that time, I did write an article for HuffPost, and it came out my first day as associate dean.
Oh, wow.
Working for you in your office. I don't know if you know that, but it was the exact same day.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember that day because I was commuting an hour at that time. And in the hour between the HuffPost article coming out and me getting here for our, we had like a retreat or something that day to kick off the fall semester. My phone had just exploded. And then it just kind of never stopped.
Right. And where are you at now?
253,000.
Right.
In the private Facebook group. And then there's an Instagram.
Another
100,000.
100,000, yep.
Substack that has 40-some thousand.
So it has blown up. Yeah. And it's not just, you know, I think it's not just the sheer number of people. It's the engagement of people. It's the interest people have in the work and in the method that they, you know, we had a conference last year that, you know, 30 some people came. You taught a class that hundreds of people signed up for. So it's ballooned in all sorts of ways.
It has. And I mean, I think that says something about how serious the problem is, like, and the lack of solutions to that problem. I think what we're doing in Burned Haystack is much different than anything anybody had done up to this point, and it's resonating with women in a way that nothing else was because it's more honest.
One of my gut, so I don't know this, so tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like other approaches had been designed around the idea that women needed to just be more desirable to men, right? Is that
and more forgiving and give everybody a million chances, and so just how things are now. Yeah. And I think there needed to be a critical mass of women, which Burned Haystack has become, saying, I don't think so. Like, no, we're not doing this because we're choosing not to. Right. And the more that community grows and the stronger that voice becomes, the easier it is to welcome new members into it and to sort of like affirm what we all suspected on a gut level, you know, to begin with, which is that like it's actually not okay to be constantly aggressed and lied to and have our boundaries violated. Like, that's not the same thing as like being chill. That's just taking abuse. And we need to call it what it is. And it, you know, instead of like internalizing all these problems, like, well, I'm just too demanding or I have a scarcity mindset, we need to put the focus on where the problems are, which is toxic masculinity and misogyny and racism and sexism and all the isms, and address that instead of like gaslighting women into taking responsibility for it. Right.
Well, and empowering women to avoid/ignore that as well.
Right. And to opt out.
Yeah.
And to opt out while still saying, I want to meet someone.
Right.
Right. Like,
right.
because up to that point, I think women were opting out and assuming like it's this or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to be okay with this or I have to be alone. And that's that's an either or fallacy, right? As we would say in writing studies. So
yeah.
yeah.
One, I want to be careful too, because I just said avoid and opt out. And I want to be clear, like no one's avoiding racism. No one's, I mean, they're saying I'm unwilling to be with a racist.
Right,
which is,
right. Yeah,
while still acknowledging the problem that is racism, the problem that is sexism, and aggression, and so on.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this has turned into a book.
Yes.
So tell people about the book.
So the book will be the comprehensive story of and manual for Burned Haystack Dating Method. So it has, all the rules, all the rhetorical patterns that we use. It's got tons of success stories. It's got a lot of humor, as we've done a lot of humor writing together.
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk about that. It's got some tactics and tricks to game the apps that I haven't talked about at all on social media, ways that people are kind of like recruiting the apps to work for them instead of the other way around, that are like ingenious and not things I made up, things other people are doing, but that I've covered in the book. It's got the whole story of the community, which is, I mean, the conclusion I keep landing on is that the method is bigger than dating and the community is bigger than anything. Like regardless of what happens with dating apps, with dating in general, this community is its own entity now that is serving women in some very deep and broad ways. So there are two things I wanted to make sure we talked about today, and one of them is exactly that, right? So this is more than, I think a lot of times like content creators, like people who are doing the kind of work you're doing are telling people things. Right.
And people are hearing that and maybe employing in their lives, maybe not. You certainly do that, but above and beyond that, you have created a community of people who support each other, who support you, who are engaged in this in a different way.
Yeah, well, and the community has created itself. Like I didn't really foresee I was just trying to game the dating apps, right? And help some other women game the dating apps. I did not foresee the level of like engagement and mutual support and innovation and creativity and humor and brilliance that obviously one person can't do that, right? It's been this collective effort, and that's what keeps me going. Like I'm exhausted, but I'm also obsessed with this in a way I've never been obsessed with anything. Yeah.
I want to ask what's next, but I also don't know. I mean, obviously the book is what's next.
The book is next, yeah. So the book comes out April 7th from HarperCollins.
I had a copy.
Yeah, I gave Ryan a copy and then I took it back and gave it to somebody else, but I'll give you another one.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
There was a limited number of advanced reader copies.
It's okay. I had one for a few days. Best 3 days of my life. I made through it. I don't know how it ends though. Which is really disappointing.
You're gonna have to buy it. Yeah. Please pre-order. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I will give you.
I already have pre-ordered, of course. So here's the other thing though, as has come out here, and I'm certain comes out in the book, and I know comes out in the group. You are a very funny person. You have done quite a bit of humor writing. So we have to back up though, because this happened even before Burned Haystack, during the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I know you were funny before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, you did something, I think, right? You took a class?
Yeah, so I was living in a one-room apartment during the pandemic.
Okay.
By myself. I mean, with my dog and cat, but it was like, so a lot of people were in that situation. We all needed something to do, right? I mean, I was teaching, but online. Right. So yeah, I enrolled in Second City's satire writing program. It's, I think, 3 different courses that are sequential. Excellent curriculum. And I really sank into the theory and practice of humor writing, not just like I'd been taking a stab at it prior to that. I think I had one McSweeney's piece at that point, which was like always my goal. But then I really wanted to understand it as a craft. And I did get, I got engaged with that to perhaps an unhealthy degree, but nothing was healthy during the pandemic. But what I was doing through most of the summer of 2020 was I made a spreadsheet, which I hate. I don't really know how to use
I've seen the spreadsheet.
Excel.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
You appreciated this one, right?
This is, yes. I think we should show it on the podcast.
We should. We absolutely should. It's the only one I've ever made. There's 11 comedic filters that have been sort of designated, primarily by Scott Dickers, the guy who created The Onion.
Oh, nice.
I think he was the first one to clearly articulate the 11 comedic filters. So I made this spreadsheet of the 11 comedic filters. Mm-hmm. And then every day I read every piece on McSweeney's Internet Tendency, which is the best humor site on the web. And I color-coded it for incidents of comedic filters so that then I could look across the spreadsheet and see patterns of what the editor was selecting for, whether it was irony or meta humor or personification, character or whatever, hyperbole. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Because I wanted to figure out in a very nuts and bolts way, what's connecting with people, what are people willing to... what vehicles are they willing to enter in a satirical mode to come out with some different perspective? So, you and I were both writing a lot about education, right? We were mocking our own discipline in a lot of ways. And I intentionally built humor into Burned Haystack from the beginning because I felt like it was necessary to survive being on the dating apps. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's really carried the community places we wouldn't have gone otherwise. And it's a bonding agent. And it's also, especially right now, I mean, in the nation and the political climate we're living in, you can say things through satire that you can't say in other ways. So it's very much a political angle, vehicle, microphone as well.
Very good. Are you still finding time for it? Can people read your...
There's a lot of my humor writing in the book. Okay. We built what we're calling humor breaks into the book. So there's it's kind of like a mashup of creative nonfiction, narrative storytelling, academic theory and critical discourse analysis, personal stories about people who met their needle using Burned Haystack, and then these humor breaks, which are peppered throughout to kind of lighten and entertain. Nice. So I can't remember how many humor breaks there are. They were all written by me except for one. We have one that was written by a group member. It was really great. She was a member of the original research cohort. But so that's in the book too.
Excellent.
And then, I mean, the book's kind of snarky throughout, which is probably not a surprise to you. But
no, because I've read part of it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that is part of, I know that a big part of not just the book, but the method includes some snark, right?
Yeah,
I mean, your rhetorical patterns are typically named in a funny way.
Are you my mother?
Yes.
Were you at the Capitol on January 6th?
Yes.
Yeah. Those are two rhetorical patterns.
Right.
Yeah. Eeyores on the apps. There's a lot of Eeyore men out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Playing their violins in their dating apps.
You're mixing metaphors now.
About their sad
Eeyore doesn't
lives.
play a violin.
They do on the dating apps.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. I sent you these in advance, just this morning though, because last minute. Didn't want you to think too much.
That was enough.
Yeah. So, who is it you hope you are inspiring?
I hope I'm inspiring women who have, up to this point, felt alone, hopeless, afraid in multiple ways. I think that's who I hope I'm inspiring.
Very good.
Yeah.
What is a book, a movie, TV show, piece of art, something that changed your life?
As you know, I do not watch movies. He's constantly trying to make me watch movies. I do not. It's non-consensual, and I'm not watching any of them.
You're watching one right now.
I'm trying. Ryan is a huge movie buff, and the rest of us have had to put some guardrails around how much he's allowed to talk about movies in the office.
Wow.
Because it gets to be excessive. But to answer your question, my book is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Changed my life. It's the closest thing to religion that I have ever known. I wouldn't have Burned Haystack without it. The weird thing is I don't even remember why I started reading it, but I started reading it and doing all the it's a creativity practices book. I don't know why I chose that rather than like a book on entrepreneurship or social media or business. Right. I didn't read any of those books. I just read The Artist's Way, and I spent a lot of time by myself walking around Lake Michigan, like no distractions, no music, no podcast, just like staring at the lake, thinking about things. And that's how Burned Haystack developed.
All right.
And writing about it and doing all the things.
All right. And then last question is, what's a piece of advice that you would want to give to someone who has not yet found their way?
Stop waiting until you feel ready to do something. Nobody's ever ready for anything. Like you start doing the thing and then you figure it out.
So here's why I'm laughing. So last night I texted you and I said that one of my favorite things was, so I love motivational like videos or little
I hate
clips.
them,
yes.
for the record. Okay.
Yes, you hate them. The one last night I texted you and said that every time I see one, I think, oh, I love this. Jenny would hate this.
Yeah.
Last night's was essentially exactly that.
Really?
Yes.
But you didn't send it to me, so I'm not plagiarizing.
No, okay. I never send them to you because I know you would hate them.
It violates my boundaries.
Yes.
And I would block to burn you.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, but it was, do it anyway.
I don't always disagree with the advice. It's more the delivery of those things that annoys me than the advice itself, because I'm not like a peppy person.
That's fair.
I don't want to be pep talked.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So book comes out April 7th.
Yep.
I don't know when this comes out, but I think before April 7th.
I hope. Yeah.
But book comes out April 7th. People can get it wherever books are sold.
Yep.
It's going to be fantastic. I know because I've skimmed it.
Yeah. In the 3 days you had
because I had
a
brief opportunity to skim it. So it has been fantastic having you on the show.
Thank you for
Super
having
excited
me.
about your success. All right, I am here with Kennedy Punky. Kennedy, how are you?
I'm all right. It's good to be back.
What are you taking this semester? What's going on academically for you?
Well, I graduate in May, which is crazy. But I have 2 comm courses that I need to finish and then a gen ed class.
Okay.
So not a lot of classes, but I'm doing a lot of like fun extracurriculars. That's how you say that word.
Nice.
I'm helping out here. I'm helping out at the TV GBX station.
Awesome.
I'm a leader of Delight Ministries. I am a TA this semester.
All right.
So I'm doing a lot of stuff. I always like have a hard time saying no to people. If someone's like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Of course.
Love that. That is the best way to do college when you can, right?
For sure. I agree.
Tons of great experience. So that is fantastic. This is always bittersweet to hear things like I'm graduating in May, right?
Because I know. It's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah. So I'm obviously thrilled for you, but of course you have been so important to the show here and
so
all
nice.
that. So
Thank you.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves because you will, of course, be back before you graduate.
Oh,
so,
yes, for sure. You can't get rid of me yet.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So we should talk a little bit about where people can find out more about the show. Our social media is UWGB Cause. That's UWGB CAHSS. The social media. Now you run the show. You record and help edit the show.
Yeah, for sure.
We also have students who are doing the social media. So you can see their work at UWGB CAHSS. You can also follow me, that's at Anger Professor, on all of our different channels to learn more. What am I missing? Anything?
I don't think so. I think that covers all of them.
Awesome. Good.
Cool stuff.
Will you please take us home?
The Lantern is brought to you by Good Cause Productions at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. The executive producer is Ryan Martin, and the production manager is Rachel Sankey. The engineer for today's episode is Kennedy Punky, with support from Justin Cavally. That Music You Love So Much was arranged by our very own Michelle McQuaid-Dewhurst. Special thanks also to our guest, Jennie Young. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Keep being amazing.